In this video, guys, I'm going to look at the truth about trading account growth. Stay tuned for this one. I think you'll like it. Hey guys, warm welcome to you. All right, so I'm going to share with you my thoughts on trading account growth that many people don't kind of share, but really it's, people just don't think about the actual operational side of this. And this is, how do you grow an account to a decent size when you're trying to make a living as a trader? And so I want to kind of give you some examples here and show you, and kind of tell you a story as well about my situation in the early years. So let's say, for example, let's use the numbers, and I know that these numbers very much vary from person to person, etc. But let's say someone has taken a £10,000 account and they've grown it into £30,000, or they've started off with a £30,000 account, dollars, whatever it may be. Okay, so now we're in a situation where we have £30,000 in our trading account to trade with. Whether you've happened to build it up to 30,000 over the time and you've got some experience and it's looking good, or whether you started out with 30,000. Let's just make that assumption now. Now, assume a trader is going to make 100% a year. That's the worst one in the world. Let's assume a trader is going to make 100% a year on his money. Some people will make more, some people will make less. I think for an active trader, it's not a bad benchmark. Some people might be like, oh, that sounds ridiculous. But, when you're using leverage, when you're there sitting there every day, we're not there to make 10% guys on our money. That's for the hedge fund guys who are kind of big asset management, and it works for them because they've got big money. Now, we're talking about small money here. Someone's got a small account, a relatively small account in this arena, of course. To make 100% for active trading, that's doable. It's perfectly achievable. Sometimes you might make much more than that. Sometimes you might make less than that. But just use that as a ballpark, because I think for active traders, it's not a bad way to look. Now, if you imagine you are trading for a living, okay, and you're taking your income from trading. Now, let's say on year one, assume that you've got some skill set now, you've got some ability to kind of trade, and yes, you're profitable and things are going okay. Let's say on year one, you make £30,000, right? So your account's at 60,000, but funnily enough, you've got to live, you've got to pay bills, you've got stuff to do, life costs money, right? And let's say you use 30,000 of that to live on. You take a 30,000, this is not a big wage by any stretch of imagination, but again, everyone's different scenarios, I accept that, but let's assume that you need £30,000 just to get by and just to do the things you need to do. All of a sudden now that 30,000's gone and your trading account's back to 30,000. So let's say year two, you do the same thing, you make 30,000. What's happening? You are just paying your bills. You're not growing, your account's not growing, fine. Now, all of a sudden, let's just say on year three, and by the way, this could happen in year one, I'm just doing for illustration purposes, you make 10K, right? What happens? Well, unless you've got savings and stuff, you still need to live on 30K. And again, I'm just using that as a benchmark example. So what happens? Well, you have to draw on the money you've got in your trading account. So all of a sudden, your trading account's now at 10K. So now if we're looking to make 100% next year, year four, unless we really put the throttle down, we're only going to make 10K and we're out the game because we can't afford to live. So we have one little slip. And of course, this could be in months, guys. I could put it in monthly increments or whatever, but you get the point. The point is that you're not allowed any slip up at all. Now, of course, if you make 200%, then great. All of a sudden your account grows just like it's growing from here to here. You're like, okay, great. I've made, 30 grand plus another 30 grand. My account can grow and that works fine, right? And if you can do that, you can really push the numbers up, of course. But we're using that 100% as a level. And some people might say it's extreme, but it's doable. So what's your option? And this kind of dawned on me early on that this is you're never going to get to a decent account size or get to a level you want to be by drawing down money. And if you have to do that, you're committed to do that because you're living on it, that's fine. And that's not, guys, this is not even thinking about, you might have a year of drawdown, then you're completely wiped out. That's the end of the game. And if you draw that down for whatever reason, let's say the market's quiet, which is a big one, necessarily needs to be a poor month from performance or poor quarter, poor year, then you're out the game, because you still got to live. Here's your 30k sitting there, you've drawn down, say 5, gone, game over. So it's very challenging when in this situation. And the answer is not a comfortable one, but the answer is at some point, if you want to make the leap into 6 figures plus accounts, 7 figures maybe if you're stretching it, let's call it 6 with this example, you're going to have to take some risk. And by the way, this is not a recommendation. As always, guys, we're in the realms here of now of kind of, being very careful with people's money. You need to make your own decision. And this is why trading is very, very risky, and you've got to be very careful. And I never recommend anyone do anything from a personal perspective, but just a kind of a viewpoint and a personal opinion on things. At some point, you are going to have to put your throttle down and start to risk more per trade than maybe you've been comfortable with. Now, that might not be the textbook thing to do. You must risk 2%, you must do this. Yeah, that's fine. If you've got a 5 million quid account, great, you can probably do that. You're not even looking for 100%. You're saying, well, listen, you know what? If I can make 10% on 5 million quid, I've got £500,000 a year, that's all right, that does me. If I make 20%, I leave £500,000 and it grows. You know the idea. But if most people trading this kind of level of account, or less, you've got £3,000 account, still valid. At some point, the uncomfortable truth, guys, is you have to put your throttle down. You're going to have to use as much leverage as you need to under certain circumstances. So when the opportunity comes up, and you've got to assume that you know what you're doing, you're comfortable with what you're doing, you have a good strategy, etc., 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 and you accept the risk that is as a blow-up risk there. But the aim is, when the opportunity is there, is to turn that 30 into 250 to 150, that kind of level. So all of a sudden, the idea should be that in this kind of multi-year period is fine, but you're ultimately looking for the opportunity where it's okay, now if I can get this up to 180 grand, 200 grand account, all of a sudden the game changes. It changes dramatically, because not only then can you don't have to go, you're not going to go crazy and start buying Lambos and all the stuff that the kids on Instagram are doing as soon as you make your first 150, 200 grand. Why would you? It doesn't make any sense, right? You've got that in your account, all of a sudden, now you can grow your account. Now you can still live frugally. You can still, maybe you can upgrade things a little bit. You don't have to go crazy, but now you can start to upgrade it. But the point is, to get from that to the level, you have to take risks. So you have to maybe start to take bigger position size. I recognise slightly different now with the ESMA rules and stuff that some of the leverage is limited, but say 10, 15 years ago, you could really push the throttle in and start doing £200 a point, £300 a point, really pushing it, because the opportunity's there. It's like, I'm going to try to push this now and try to get to the point where now I can reset things and things then can start to go. And I believe that, look, the maths kind of a bit self-explanatory. And I'm always interested to hear your comments, guys, in the comment section below on this kind of thing. But at some point the throttle has to go down, and maybe we'll make sure you're subscribed, because I'll perhaps talk about this more in the future. I don't want to go down different rabbit holes now, strategies to do that, and how kind of you could do that. There's no safe way of doing it. You've always got the chance to blow up, but maybe when a good opportunity is to put the throttle down. But the point is in this video is that you just look at the maths of it, and this is why I'm a big advocate now. I didn't do it at the time, but I'm definitely a big advocate now of, if you can do something else that covers your bills while you are trading, or while you are getting to a point where things work, then that's way better. I just went straight into it, and you're in this horrible situation, not horrible situation, a situation where you back's against the wall. Whereas if your income's sorted out, you ain't got to worry about that. Let's say you've got a partner covering you, or let's say you've got a business, or you've got something, and then you can grow this. And all of a sudden, look, the game changes. You just got to sit tight and put your 100% in a year in for your 4-year period, and all of a sudden that's looking very nice. Then it becomes a different ball game. The challenge is when you have to pull it out to live on. This sucker can never grow, and so you're forced into the situation, as I alluded to earlier, where you've got to go, right, this has got to be 200. I've got to get this to 200. It's all or nothing, because otherwise I'm going to be stuck in this forever, and it's inevitable that I'll be out of the game, because it's inevitable at some point I'll have a drawdown. Absolutely inevitable. There's no way I can put these numbers up every single year forever. And also, why would I want to just be sitting on 30k a year forever without vulnerability? It doesn't make any sense. It's not why we're in the game taking the risk. So in a roundabout way, guys, this is it. This is I think the truth about account growth. At some point, you've got to put the throttle down, or if you can, do it and accumulate that without drawing it down, i.e. you don't have to draw it down for your monthly fee, your monthly costs and stuff, then great. Or even some, if you're very young and you're still living at home with parents again, or whatever it is that means that you don't have to draw it down, then that's better. But the second scenario is the truth that at some point you're gonna have to put a bit of risk on the table if you want to grow that into a decent size. All right, guys, take care. If you like this kind of stuff, thumbs up's appreciated. And of course, I'm going to do a follow-up video to this at some point in the future, so keep an eye out for that one. Bye-bye.